It's cheap tea. It doesn't really get bitter. Also have a lot of honey in there.
Man, you really are lonely.
What is that supposed to mean? Because I have a lot of honey, or I don't mind bitterness?
Oh, because you're drinking tea and it has honey and it has like all the things that would make you feel warm inside, I guess.
And a little bit of whiskey too.
Like, never forget.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Films and Fika, the podcast where we have a cup of coffee, also known as a fika, and rant about movies, good and bad films. Hello, Mao. How are you today?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm good. Algot.
Good.
Thank
Good.
you. How are you?
You seem very upbeat today.
Well, I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of got used to doing one of these every week because that's how we've been doing the last, I think it was 3 episodes or something.
Was it really 3? Wasn't it? It feels like, yeah.
I think it was 3,
right.
But I know our schedule is every other Thursday, but you just kind of get into routine, and I feel like in the time that we're living right now, routine kind of helps a little bit.
True.
Dealing with the day-to-day.
True.
So this whole week I was kind of in a limbo where I was like, I don't have to edit, I don't have to watch a movie realistically really soon. So it was a bit weird, I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I won't lie to you, I've actually enjoyed having an entire week having done nothing.
Yeah. No, I understand that. It makes sense.
I've been playing a lot of video games, which is weird because I haven't played very many video games, and now I'm actually playing video games as if I was 12 again. I've been staying up to 3 a.m. That's insane.
You're not alone.
No.
It's happening to me too. It's a little bit worrisome.
It's a little bit worrisome.
I feel like I am. Yeah. I feel like I'm in middle school or something.
And you don't really have routines then.
Well, you see, outside of this, no. Realistically, I'm really bad at keeping time. So it's if I want to sit down and read, I don't want to be thinking about the fact that I have to do something else afterwards. I don't know. I don't deal well with it. I'm I would say, I'm driven by mood, and that kind of dictates what I want to do for the rest of the day. If I don't want to move from my bed, or if I just want to play video games or X, Y, or Z, I think that's how I roll.
But at the same time, I've been talking to a lot of people and looking for recommendations of either new video games or new shows to watch, because I've kind of explored all of my options there, and I've been bored the past few days. So it's been nice actually going out yesterday, doing something different.
Yeah, I feel like you have to allow yourself the time to maybe try and, within the safety, limitations that we have at the moment, to at least try and do something different. Walk your dog through a different path or at a different time, or just the little changes that might help your sanity deal with it, for sure.
Go on a hike, be safe, and for sure. I am excited about my recommendation for this week, actually. I'm very proud that I have something unique and something different.
I'm happy that you say that, because I feel like we enjoy giving our recommendations, but it has been a little bit hard trying to find stuff to actively recommend. I don't know. But,
I've had a few this week, surprisingly enough, so I might save them up for later, but I have a good one. What about you? You go first.
Okay, so I'm going to go with a movie, mostly because, after watching Friends for the 10,000th time.
You saw all of it?
Maybe not all of it, but I did make pretty good progress. I have seen all of it multiple times. more times than I am probably, proud of saying. Yeah. But in this case, I've been trying to watch movies and trying to, fill in the gaps in terms of like my watch list and stuff. And, because we went to film school and we're both basic bitches when it comes to film, at least to a certain extent, we enjoy filmmakers, like specific filmmakers that most of the movie community enjoy. And one of them is David Fincher.
Oh.
He did Seven. He did.
He's overrated.
There is an argument. There is an argument for that. But I really enjoy his movies. Shocker. I think he's technically very, very good. And there was this one movie of his that I hadn't seen. And I was like, I'm going to, get it out of the way and officially have seen all of his filmography. And it's a movie that a lot of people don't talk about. Like, I've really never heard anyone bring it up in conversation. But it's called The Game, and it came out after Seven. And it stars Michael Douglas and Sean Penn. And it's this thriller about a Wall Street type guy who gets sucked into a game, as the title gives away, obviously. Anyways, it's a fun thriller. It's a solid thriller. I was in it. I was super entertained. I was, I feel when you look at movies from a filmmaker that don't have the same, let's call it, hype around them as their more known, more analyzed films, I think you get to see, the things that make the filmmaker special. And I think he handles pace really, really good. And I think he handles suspense and thriller in ways that not a lot of filmmakers do. And I like fucked up movies. I really, really do. Murder and mystery and all the stuff.
How is it like?
I had a lot of fun.
Compared to Seven, I guess, if like how suspenseful is it, and or like is it a very Fincher movie? Would you say?
Yes, I would say it's a very Fincher movie. Good. It's like it takes just a little bit at the beginning to really hook you in, but once it has you, it doesn't let go, and you're kind of like in it, and you really enjoy the whole experience that comes out of it. I watched it with my brother, and we were both really, really happy at the end of it. So yeah, I would say go watch it if you can. I think it's a gem that not a lot of people know about, myself included.
Absolutely. So my recommendation is not a movie. Surprisingly enough, it's not a show or any visual. It's a song. It's music. So okay. I'm very excited because even though you're not European, you're aware of Eurovision Song Contest. You know that flamboyant place where every country of Europe come together and sing songs for each other, and then we vote for which song is the best. Well, of course, Eurovision Song Contest this year is completely cancelled, so it's not going to happen. But every country's submission is still like available. I don't really know. It just popped up on my Spotify, and I really, really enjoy the submission from Iceland. It's really cool. Like I usually don't watch the Swedish Eurovision like when they actually compete within the country, but I do watch the Eurovision because there are some golden songs here and there.
Well, realistically speaking, a lot of artists or some artists who have like an actually big name, they came from Eurovision. You know, like it's a solid contest. Like ABBA came from it. Most
ABBA
notably
did come from it. Yeah, true.
Yeah, and
for sure,
no shame in it.
No, and there has been some very good artists from Denmark and Great Britain. At least that's the kind of music that I really appeal to. They're not necessarily songs that you love and adore, different from ABBA, but they have like that one good song that you might put on your playlist for the summer or so. Regardless, so it's called "Think About Things" by
Daði for me.
Try and pronounce that.
Oh, we'll write it down in the description because I have no idea what you just said, but it's
really cool.
The song itself.
The song itself has it's a really thick and cool bass line, and it's poppy, and I mean it has the typical Eurovision feel to it, which is I find kind of cringe-worthy, but it's kind of dope. It's kind of dope. Here, let me play you a snippet of the song.
And forever, and I could never let you go. Baby, I can't wait to know. What do you think about things? Believe it.
So I've been listening to that song.
Actually super funky.
It's super funky, but yet kind of like modern. And yeah, I've been listening to it on the road multiple times already.
Okay.
So yeah, it has a deserved place on my playlist at least. So you should check it out.
That's cool. I will, actually. I think it sounded really funky, but I do understand what you mean about that like Eurovision like cringy feel that comes from it. But I think that's just like the territory, and you know, it is what it is.
There's just the stereotypical things that comes with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even Waterloo had it a little bit, to be completely honest.
Especially back in the 70s, that was like at peak. It's just the same pattern throughout. But it is what it is. It's Eurovision.
I mean, I think it's like every other contest, you know, and every other kind of thing that goes on TV. Hell, even things that don't go on TV have that sort of recurring theme, I guess. Like if you take a look at a lot of the Academy Award-winning movies, or like the Cannes Film Festival movies that win, or like the X Factor contestants that get to win.
Sure.
Like they're all within the same kind of area, I guess, ballpark. But it is what it is, and you just get used to it. You get roped into liking some of them, I guess.
Right. So the other day I was brushing my teeth, and I've been meaning to ask you this very important question. Now, when you brush your teeth, assuming that you do,
yes,
do you put water on the toothbrush or the toothpaste? Like, do you take out your toothbrush, put your toothpaste on your brush, and then down in the sink and water it up, lube it up? Or do you take your toothbrush and lube it up, put some water on there, and then your toothpaste?
There's only one way and one right way to do it. Realistically, you put the toothpaste first, and then you add the water to it. Yeah. Otherwise, you're kind of a psychopath.
I'm glad, because I do the same.
Okay.
So we're good.
I'm just saying, it's like that thing with toilet paper. Like, do you go over or under? And people who go under, you're doing it wrong.
I go under just to fuck with people. I find it hilarious.
Right. But you go under in the sense of like, you do your business and maybe you like flip it and you leave it under. Is that what you're saying? Or do you actively use it under?
Both. Just to fuck with people. I like to watch it burn, the world burn.
You just like chaos.
I will say though, I've been trying it out to take water first and then toothpaste. And it works. Truly, there's no difference, but it just feels weird.
It's weird.
Like, actually, when I was around, well, in my early teens, I heard someone talking about this one thing, like having this debate about whether or not toothpaste before or after. And I'm like, people actually do the toothpaste after water?
After water.
What? That's a thing? You can do that?
I feel like we don't really think a lot of the things that we were taught as children. Like for us, it just becomes second nature.
It's the small things that you pick up as a kid. Like, you have to do it this way.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I remember the first time that I saw someone tie their shoelaces a different way than I did. And I was like, hold the phone, bro. What the fuck are you doing? Like, I was completely mind blown. Because that's like, kid, you get taught a specific way of doing things. And I feel like in your brain, it just becomes this like, that's it. Like, that's how you do it. Like, your brain is not developed or focused enough at that moment in time that you're like, oh, maybe there's a different way to get from A to B. It's just like, no, like I was taught to get to B, you had to do this. And I feel it's such an interesting thing. Mostly it's probably because as a kid, you don't care enough about these like menial small things and you just want to get on with your day. But it's weird. It's weird when you think about the little things that you do.
I think as a kid,
just because your parents taught you that way,
you just don't reflect of there being any other option. You're like, that's the way to do it. Okay, cool. It's very black and white. You don't really have a world view as you do when you grow up. Like another one of those things is like crossing the street. To me, it was very 1, 2, 3. You need to look one way, then the other way, and then the other way again. If you were to ask me, I don't even look across the street anymore. I just go. If there are cars, they're gonna have to stop for me.
Damn.
I think that comes with teenage years, and you have to like go against the grain all the time.
Yeah, it's like you become this weird, challenging version of yourself where it's like, what if I don't want to do it that way? What if there's a different way of doing it? And even if you're wrong, you don't really want to let it go.
But there is a few of those things. I don't really have a good example, but where you, as a kid, it's very like easy into a conversation when you're starting to notice that these people don't do it the way that you're taught. It can be kind of dangerous territory to tread on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You don't want to be the weird kid who puts the toothpaste on first.
Exactly. And it just comes down to like how society has this set up idea of what you do, and you don't want to like stand out for the stupid things like those. Like, you like maybe your individualism isn't as developed at that moment in time, but you don't want to be the freak that goes under instead of over. And it's actually, it's like, I don't personally eat a lot of cereal, but I know for a fact that there's this huge debate about whether you put milk or the cereal first. People actually get really, really heated about it. And it's intense, I guess. I don't know. We are weird as human beings, like how we create a habit, I think, and how hard it is to break.
It's very human to have one thing and there's no other way. Like, that's why we're at war, I guess. That's why people argue all the time. It's just small things like the cereal thing is stupid, realistically.
Yeah.
But if someone do it different from what you're supposed to do, you gotta like slap them.
It's a deal breaker for a lot of people. Or like, there's so many examples, I guess. Like, there's people who say data instead of data. And that's like a huge thing is like, why do you say it like that? Or either or either. Fucking humans, we're so petty sometimes.
Get hung up on things like that as well so easily.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But I think it's a good segue that we're talking about childhood and the things that we believe in as children, given the movie that we're talking about today. Yeah,
good segue.
I'm actually very proud. I know.
Growing up, becoming an adult.
Yeah, and the pain that comes with it sometimes. Like to have to let go of things that you thought were true or just really hardly believed in. So, as the title says, this week we're talking about Jojo Rabbit, and it's a 2019 movie directed by Taika Waititi. He also wrote the script. He also produced it. He also acted in it. So basically, the guy's a fucking genius. It's a coming of age movie. It's set in Nazi Germany. It's like the last year of the war, Second World War, for those of you who didn't know, I guess. And it's about a Nazi child. He is a very big believer of the Nazi regime. He has an imaginary friend, that is basically Adolf Hitler. And the movie, talks about what happens when someone who's that much of a fanatic finds a Jewish girl hiding in his house by his mother, with his mother's help. And that's like a little synopsis for you guys. And we're going to talk spoiler free for the next 5 minutes. And then we'll get into the very heavy spoilers of the movie. So, Algot, what did you think about it? Spoiler free.
I adore this movie. It is perfect in every single way that I can imagine. I mean, I have a certain love to this director. I love every single movie that he's done previously. So I was already colored by that going into the film. So I was already gonna like the film, certainly. But I would say that I had pretty high expectations, and they were met. I think, and this is very daring to say, but I feel like Jojo Rabbit was the best movie of 2019. And it has some quite strong competition. That was not an easy year in the Academy Awards and so. But to me personally, this movie is just it fits every category of mine. And I just love it. It's very escapistic, and it deals with childhood and yada yada. And it's perfect for me. So yeah, I feel like it's the best film of that year. And knowing that it goes up to Parasite with that, the people that have listened to our episode on Parasite probably know what I will rate this film by the end of it. But I love it. I think you do too, don't you?
Yeah, no, I really, really, really do enjoy this film a lot. I thought, I think it's perfect too, to be completely honest. I
have it's going to be difficult to find negative aspects of the film. It's super well crafted.
Yeah. Look, to be completely honest, I don't think I personally have anything bad to say about the movie. There's some controversial things, I guess, that we can touch on.
Yeah, for sure.
And give our 2 cents based on that. But I don't really have anything bad to say about the movie. I think it was, like you said, crafted beautifully. I do think it was one of the best movies of 2019. It wasn't my personal favorite. My personal favorite was a very sad and, depressing movie. But this is definitely top 5 2019. And I think it's interesting that you brought up Parasite, because I feel, just like we said about Bong Joon-ho and how he handled that movie brilliantly, I think Taika Waititi does the same thing here. He plays with genre, he plays with tone, he plays with the script, and this movie came at the proper time, at the height of a lot of intolerance, I guess, in recent years. And I think it's a really good movie. And I know that the plot sounds weird and quirky and maybe even a little bit dark. But if you haven't seen it, give it a shot.
It is a difficult sell. I think the logline is pretty good when they say that it's an anti-hate satire. It's truly that. It's a satire that's very well executed in every single way. My mom went up to me when I was gonna see this movie, and it was like, they're making a movie about Hitler. Hitler is actually in the flesh in the film. And seeing the film, I feel like they just do it amazingly. Seeing how Jojo, the main character, the way he portrays Hitler as a pretend friend, it's just very nice seeing, it plays off very well. That's simply put.
Yeah. I agree. I think it is a hard sell, and that's probably why it took so long to actually get made. But
and I guess with the higher stakes, you got to be a bit more careful with the things the sensitive subjects that it is. So yeah, it's probably more carefully crafted. But I can't recommend it enough. If you're into, if you want to see a lighthearted coming of age film, because that's truly what it is. But funny, quirky, kind of Wes Anderson like, which a little bit, right?
In some sense, I feel like, it was Wes Anderson. I feel like in the colors of it and
a bit of the
the
cinematography.
quirkiness of it. Yeah, but it's more satire than straight comedy.
Yeah.
Like you will find yourself laughing at how ridiculous the like juxtaposition between the scenario and what was really going on during the World War II and the Holocaust. And again, that's probably why the movie still, even though is very well made and it was actually very successful, you know, like everything art, it had a lot of people who weren't up for it, you know, and it's a completely understandable position. But with that, I think we can start getting into spoiler territory now. And, you know, if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's really fun. And then come back, listen to us, share and discuss and do all the things.
All the things.
All the things.
Yeah.
So we can start with the beginning. I feel like with this movie, the beginning is key because you have to set up tone and you have to understand the dynamic between this kid and the imaginary version of Adolf Hitler that he has in his head. And I feel the first scene really does that well.
I mean, we spend time with Jojo along with Hitler, I guess. So it really establishes, as you say, his relationship and who Jojo is as a character.
Exactly. And it doesn't really hold back any punches. Like the first few minutes of this movie will tell you exactly what you're signing up for in terms of tone and this whole angle with the satire and where it's going to go.
Ridiculousness.
And yeah, basically just trying to find the various ridiculous aspects, not only of Nazi Germany, but I feel like of hate, of like true hatred against another person or another group of people or, you know, anything specific like that. And I feel you also get to see how thought through this whole movie is by Taika Waititi. Like he saw this footage, archival footage of how people behaved around Hitler and when he went around doing tours and like his speeches and all of this thing. And he was like, that looks weirdly close to how people behaved around the Beatles. And boom, you have an intro. Like you put the German version of a Beatles song sang by the Beatles, by the way. They recorded 2 German songs, like 2 songs in German, which I think is awesome. And so he puts that over footage of Hitler going around Germany and how people would like faint and cry and just like be so ecstatic.
Girls are literally fangirling on Hitler.
Exactly.
It's crazy. I guess it's nothing that you necessarily see in history class. So it's kind of freaky, but a cool opening sequence for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like it just lets you know exactly what you're in here for. You know, he's not going to pull any of his punches, and he's going to be very straightforward. And I think it's not easy to portray Hitler the way that he did and still us have it, believe it, you know, and like be on board with the whole movie. How did you feel about him portraying Hitler and the way that he went about it?
I never saw it as a big issue. I was never too worried about it, knowing Taika, I guess, knowing it's a satire. They're very forward with that entire thing, and having seen the trailer multiple times, I knew what I was getting into for sure. I love the progression of Jojo's interpretation of Hitler as we move along and how it's worsened and worsened as he gets to know more about the Nazi ideology and or Jews as actual people, as well as, you know, simply as he moves along, as he grows up as a person, as a character.
Yeah.
But it's also funny to see how extreme Hitler, like in the first sequence again, the first time we see Hitler, he's all over the top. It's never a question whether or not he's trying to portray the actual person. It's a glorification of what Hitler was, and in a way, it was like the way they wanted to portray him through propaganda. So it's interesting in multiple ways as a funny satire, but also as, a historical piece.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because, and I think this comes down to script and the editing of the movie. We experience all of it through the eyes of Jojo Rabbit.
Very well done. Yeah.
Well, his name is Johannes Betzler. But Jojo. So he's a 10-year-old, and he was exposed to everything you just mentioned, the propaganda, the hype around Hitler, this idea of the German height and prowess and power.
And you're very easily affected by that kind of things as a kid. So it's only natural.
Exactly. And so the way that we experience everything through his eyes allows this movie to tell the story the way that it's supposed to, right? Because it would be easy to think, oh, Jojo's just dumb, or he can't see past what he lives around. But realistically, when you're 10, you don't. You don't think about,
as we said before, you accept your surroundings as they are. And
Exactly. And I feel, it's like you said, it's an interesting progression to see the change that he goes through as he lives this idea of like children behind.
And it's also hilarious to see Hitler by the dinner table with a head of a unicorn. Because why not? And it's a kid's imagination. Why not? Of course Hitler eats unicorns.
And I feel it gave Waititi the freedom to just play with it. And I feel one of the things that I really, really enjoy about this movie is how visual it is. We talked a little bit about how visual movies can be with Parasite and how visuals interconnect within the story. But I feel this goes above it in terms of its visual storytelling. I think it's amazing. And we can talk about it more as we go through the movie. But realistically, one of my favorite parts of the movie is the first act of it, when you see Jojo he goes to camp, like the training camp weekend, which based on the trailers, I thought was going to be most of the movie. I thought the movie was going to go back and forth between his home life and the camp. So the fact that it's only 10 or 15 minutes, I don't mind. But I just think it's so great at introducing these characters.
And it's very efficient too. I mean, it's not necessarily a complicated story. It doesn't have that many characters. But on a second watch, I kind of reflected on the fact that you introduce Jojo, and then only a few minutes later, there's Elsa, a Jew in the attic. Jew, hilarious. It definitely moves forward without stopping a beat necessarily, but the editing is just perfect like that. There's a few montages, and it progresses perfectly. You go to Jojo, you introduce the mother, and then you introduce the Jew in the attic, and there's your story. That's the plot, and then you start.
I feel like you said, it's pretty to the point, and I think it's hilarious when you think about how this movie got made. Was Waititi got recommended the book Caging Skies by his mom, and apparently he started reading it. And here's the thing about the book: the book is actually very different to the movie.
I can imagine.
It's a very heavy, very dark, very scary book about fanatism and toxic masculinity and a whole bunch of other stuff. Apparently, I haven't read it, but this is what I heard. And actually, Waititi doesn't even remember if he finished the book, because about halfway through, he had this whole movie in his head already, and he was like, "That's the story that I'm gonna tell." And like you said, that's why it might feel a little simple, but I feel that with coming of age movies, simplicity is not a bad thing.
I mean,
it's more about,
we truly spend all of the movie with Jojo through his perspective, and you don't need anything else. Definitely not.
Yeah, and because it's not about plot or about complex, sci-fi terminology or anything. It's about this boy growing up and just trying to figure out who he is. And kind of remarkably so, you have this boy Roman Griffin Davis, and he carries the whole movie. And I think he was actually 10 or 11, and it's amazing how
insane.
good he is.
Like, where did this kid come from? New Zealand.
I know,
but
it's like, crazy.
He's so good. He's so good. I mean, of course, we've had things like Stranger Things recently, and those kids are amazing. But kid actors can literally ruin a movie.
Well, we saw it last episode a little bit. You know,
those kids were older too.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to the fact that it's not about age.
Yeah.
It might sound corny or something, but I feel it's about talent. Just having the talent to do it. Because it's not an easy job. You're carrying a whole movie, and he had to have some sort of German accent. And you also have some very emotional scenes, which I think were very, very well done in terms of direction and tone. But he manages to do them. You know, one of the most difficult scenes to sit through, you know, when his mom's dead, that's all him. We never see Scarlett Johannson. I think it's worth talking about it in terms of this scene specifically. And I want to know your thoughts on it, because we kind of talked a little bit about it before we were recording, but not even today, like at some point. But the movie's so visual and so specific about those visuals that this is one of the biggest like gut punch scenes that I've had in a while. You know, like it just creeps up on you, and you know it when you see it, and that's the brilliance of it, right? Like, it's just so good. It's just so good. It is
literally the best death scene that I've ever seen, I think. It's like so... It plays with your emotions so much, because this little kid who's been through so much is now like actually finding some happiness, some love in his life. And there's a little bit of color in this desaturated world. And then he just stands up, he looks over, and you know, it's just like... there's some shoes. And again, like the visual language, they have been plotting these images with Jojo at the same level as his mother's shoes. It's perfect. It's amazing. And then we just cut away from it, and you sit there a little bit. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And just the way that it plays with your feelings just adds to it so much that you go from like a super strong feeling of love, and then all of a sudden, like, death. Horrible.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel a lot of it has to do, well, at least for me, I'm not going to lie. I think Scarlett Johannson is kind of underappreciated when it comes to her acting, especially after she started doing the Avenger movies and the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. I feel that kind of trapped her in a box, not in a bad way necessarily, because she's still a badass and she's still super smart and she's still like strong. But last year, a lot of people got to see how good she is as an actress, as someone who is able to take you to very emotional places and to very funny places, and just how dynamic she can be with her portrayals. And the way that she, you know, gives life to Rosie, Jojo's mom, I think is so brilliant.
And I think
I love her
even more so, like the dynamic that Rosie and Jojo has, how they play off with each other, especially with the dinner scene, how Rosie puts some ashes on her face and has beard and acts out being Jojo's dad. It's just like, again, it's a very like perfectly emotionally ups and downs of a scene, of a sequence. It's super cool, and it ends with them dancing, and it's so sweet. Yeah, like I really enjoy how Rosie is portraying like the childhood that Jojo doesn't have. Of course, Jojo being the kid who doesn't have a father figure or a father in the house, so he's supposed to be the father of the house or the man in the house, and all of this outside of impact that he has of growing up to go out in war and yada yada, having to kill a bunny to prove that you are an adult and a man. And then Rosie completely contrasts that. Even as his mother, she shows him a better side of life, a brighter side of life. He's trying to be so much more. He's trying to be an adult and a man, while she still has the childlike. She's still a child inside that he is not. So it's nice.
Yeah, and I think it's a very interesting dynamic, the one that they have, mostly because, you know, Jojo is a fanatic and he's a little bit crazy, especially at the start, like the first half of the movie. I would say, like, you can see in Rosie's way of treating him that to an extent she is a little bit worried and she's a little bit scared of who this kid is and how indoctrinated he is, you know, like how much he believes in the Nazi cause and the, you know, German belief of being superior and all this other things. And there's parts of it, most of it, that gets made fun of, like the whole thing about him being devastated when he found out that his grandfather wasn't blonde. And, you know, it's like
it took him weeks to get over it.
And exactly, it's like a hilarious moment. And I feel that it's supposed to be, because he's a 10-year-old and you're supposed to have fun with it. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, it's like it's kind of twisted how into Nazi philosophy this kid is and how easily manipulated he was. And I think maybe that's what Waititi is trying to focus on, you know, like how malleable we are as human beings and how dangerous that can be, you know.
But it only makes sense. Like she just wants to protect him. He's the only kid that she has left. So it makes a lot of sense that she doesn't, because to the audience, as the audience goer, we always know what Rosie is up to. She's anti the entire Nazi thing, and she just wants the war to be over. Of course, she like has those small sentences here and there when she is implying it directly to the kid, but she's not trying to change him. She's just, I think it's perfect parenting, essentially. Like, he has his worldview, but she still lets him explore whatever he wants to, what he thinks is
she's not trying to impose. Yeah, she's not trying to force something on him. She's just like, it's fine that you have this whole thing going on, but look at this other side, you know, like
slowly, calmly tries to win him over, essentially. But of course, if you're literally taught in school of Jews not liking Brussels sprouts, or what are they talking about? It's like poison to them, I think they're saying. Then, you know, Rosie doesn't really stand much of a chance.
Yeah, but let's talk about Elsa a little bit, because I think
also an amazing actor. Amazing.
Yeah, it's insane. Wow.
Like I truly hope that these kids will have an amazing acting career. I just hope the best for them, that they're actually able to
mostly
pursue.
Because they're so good.
They're so good already. Can you imagine?
Yeah. It's just like, I want to see more.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see what their range is. I want to see what else they're capable of, because, like you said, she is super good, and she also doesn't have an easy part.
No.
You know, like, and it's a part that she could have easily, like, she could have been overly sad or overly mean, but she's just enough of both.
I think there's a lot of good directing that's
100%. And I feel the directing comes with all of the cast members, you know, like even the Nazi characters that get introduced, like Captain K and the guy that he's clearly having a gay relationship with. And you know what? I'm actually going to take a time to recognize the fact that I enjoyed Rebel Wilson in this movie. I don't usually enjoy her acting.
Appreciate Rebel Wilson?
Not all the time.
She's a badass, though.
I think she's. Oh yeah, for sure, and I think she's actually funny. You know, in some of the
she's perfect in
some
Pitch
of the
Perfect.
other movies. Yes, exactly. So I do enjoy her in Pitch Perfect, but I feel like in some other movies she kind of started just playing the same kind of monotone character, and I feel this is like her in essence, but it's also a really wacky character that just made me crack up every time she speaks. I thought she was great.
I have had 18 babies for a German country, the motherland. I couldn't be more proud.
Yeah, or like when she wants to give Jojo a gun, and everyone was like, "What? No!" And she's just like, "Here's a gun. It's okay."
Perfect, absolutely. But Elsa is an amazing actor, and again, just like the chemistry from the get-go between Jojo and Elsa, they're playing off each other so well, and there's always like that play of the contrast, because you're on Jojo's side, even though of course he's on the losing side of the of the history.
Spoiler alert.
You're on his side because he's just this poor little sweet kid, and it's so cute of him trying to understand that Elsa is actually human, and all of this, his entire worldview is crumbling as he finds out more.
And I love the editing of the scene where they first meet, because like we said before, we're on his perspective, and the moment that he goes up and he finds this girl, all of that sequence is edited like a horror movie.
There's the high strings,
the sound design, the sound, like everything is like a horror movie. The
hand is slowly creeping out.
Exactly. Like it's all made to put us in the same headspace that he's in, and it's brilliant because you're in it with him. Like, who is this person in his house? Like, why is she there? What's gonna happen if she gets found out? Like, all of these things go through our mind, just like they go through his mind, you know. And I think it's hilarious. It's hilarious when he also notices the fact that this girl can take him. Like, there's a couple of moments after the first meeting where she's like, "I'm stronger than you. I'm taller than you. I could take you, and I'm a Jewish person." And I think that's one of the things that starts him to change.
It's a very slow and easy progression too, and I love that you just don't change overnight. That's not how it's gonna work. Every time Jojo, or at least the first times that he comes up to her before they're actually friends, he's slowly easing up, but he's always trying to have this like outer layer and buff up like a manly man and be like, "Okay, Jew, here's how it's going to be." Amazing. So their dynamic again is amazing. The way they just play off each other, the way Elsa has sympathy for this young poor kid. I want to talk about the ending with them too, though.
Yes,
I think that's the only thing that I struggle with the film.
Oh,
yeah.
Do tell. Actually, yeah. Okay, get into it.
So again, we see this movie from Jojo's perspective, how he is slowly easing up to Elsa, how he literally starts having butterflies in his belly. Like, amazing. That's kind of where I find the most like Wes Anderson, like you pan down and then there's like this picture in picture with feather on it. It's just, it's so
wholesome.
Yeah. And it's very quirky and like, it's nice. Well, Jojo is falling in love with Elsa, where that's very obvious, at least. And then at the end of it, when he has to is it safe out there and all of that? There's so much buildup. So usually when I watch movies, I puke at happy endings where they live happily ever after, and they kiss and they walk it down the sunset. I don't think I would have minded it for this film. Of course, however, Elsa is so much older than him. Yeah, and I guess if you look at it that way, it has always been that sister-brother relationship that they have, from Elsa's perspective at least. But we don't really see, since we always see it from Jojo's like eye line, Elsa very rarely stands up for us to actually see how much older she is. So I think that kind of, you might have been able to do that better. Some sort, I guess. It's just very heartbreaking to me when she's completely friend zoning him. No, but it's a very cute moment. Granted, that Jojo realizes that you probably love me more than as a brother, but yes, I do. But yeah, I don't think I would have minded a little bit of like an open ending, a kiss or something like that.
Okay. I mean, I can see what you're saying. And I think it comes down to the fact that we see their dynamic from Jojo's perspective. And because he's falling in love with her and this whole like boyhood crush aspect of the movie, I don't know if I feel like, you're already dealing with a movie that is like about Nazis and about Second World War and about fanatism and all of these other heavy subjects that maybe having the 17-year-old end up with the 10-year-old might have been pushing it. Like, I feel people would have been like, that's crossing a line. Especially because it's happened before, like with Call Me By Your Name, where there's supposed to be a huge, well, not huge, but like a big age gap in between the two main characters who have a romantic relationship going on. But I don't know. For me, honestly, hearing you talk about endings is always super interesting because first of all, you jump around all the time. It's like, I feel it depends on how you wake up that day, if you want a happy ending or if you want a sad ending. Like, I know that endings are important to you, but sometimes you're like, you find it so hard to believe that a movie can have a happy ending. Like it takes you away from it. But you also really enjoy very happy movies, very quirky, like this type of movie. So, and those usually have a happy ending some way or another.
Realistically, I think it is me just determining that it's the ending that matters, but it's really the build-up leading to it, I guess.
I really enjoyed the ending. I feel like endings are hard. All endings are hard, and sticking the landing is never easy. But I feel this was just right. I also feel the song Heroes by David Bowie is one of the best movie songs ever. Like, I don't care that there's a lot of movies who use it as part of their movie. I feel realistically down the line, I would love to use it in a movie because it's just the best movie song ever.
An ending on it, you can't get going out with a bang there. It's like made for.
I agree. It's very heartwarming and uplifting, and I think it's very well done.
It is a really good ending. You're like, of course, you're gonna leave that auditorium with a smile on your face. There's just no question about it. It's a good ending, 100%.
Yeah, and I feel it comes down to the fact that we go on this whole journey where it's like it starts as a quirky, happy movie, and then it gets a little bit scary, and then it gets happy, uplifting, and then it knocks you on your ass when Rosie dies, and then it gets a little bit scary again with the whole Gestapo police officers showing up, which is, again, I feel it just talks to how good Waititi was balancing,
even though it's a
genre and tone.
Radical satire, it's very down to earth and very realistic in many ways. Even though the characters are very over the top, it's very down to earth in a weird way. Like, realistically, they wouldn't end up together, the two of them. Yeah, realistically, Rosie would die eventually.
100%. And
there's a lot of those scenes that are extremely serious, but it just works. The contrast of the serious death scenes and war scenes contra the hilarious Heil Hitler scenes with the Gestapos.
Which, again, genius. I laughed my way all through that scene. It's amazing. Just like, because it's so ridiculous, right? And they had to do that.
It's so funny.
That was an actual thing. Like, if you walked into a room and there were like 10 people, you had to Heil all of them, especially if they were like officials and they were like a higher rank than you. Like, it sounds ridiculous, and it was super funny, but it was a thing. And I feel that's what the movie's trying to do, right? It's like it's pointing out the ridiculous craziness of this whole
That's
group
where reality.
that were real. Exactly. Yeah.
So, in the Gestapo scene, Captain K literally saves the entire situation with Elsa saying the wrong date of birth, but Captain K ignores it, or so it seems, or like maybe they're gonna come back later and just bring her with them. It's very tense. Throughout the film, you're never too sure about Captain K. I mean, heck, he even saves Jojo's life. So, do you think that Captain K and Rosie, they obviously have a relationship from the get-go, judging by the fact that when Jojo is blown up to pieces, K is like, his mother is gonna kill me. And then, of course, she does by kicking him in the balls, which I guess kills a future generation instead of himself. But is Captain...
She attacked him.
Is Captain K a sympathizer from the get-go? What's the relationship between Captain K and Rosie, do you think?
I think Rosie and Captain K knew each other through Rosie's husband, who was a military man. I'm guessing maybe, they trained together or they were friends before and they also trained together, some sort of dynamic like
maybe
that.
It even had to do something with him being kicked off the force and having to train younglings. Operation
Screw Up. Which we don't know anything about. I feel he's an interesting character overall just because, like you said, you're never quite sure with him. He bounces back and forth because at the end of the day, I feel it comes down to the fact that when you're dealing with a military regime, it's kind of hard to know with everyone. Like, a lot of them might have been like Jojo, like completely pro-Nazi and
brainwashed,
very much a fanatic. Yeah, brainwashed. But some of them were like there because you had to be part of the army. You had to fight for your country. You were either with or against them. And that's the way that they saw it. That's not necessarily the way a lot of soldiers lived their day-to-day, interactions with the country and the people. I feel the fact that maybe he was, properly committed to the cause at some point, because that's just the idea that you get from it. But I feel the moment he gets demoted and he kind of loses sight of his career as a military man, maybe the ridiculous aspects of some things start popping up, and the fact that he is a gay man in a regime that also killed and completely attacked homosexuals at the time. I think that was a hard thing to deal with for him.
I think there's definitely that. Some way along his path, he started to turn over or so. I don't know, because he's still seen running around in this ridiculous outfit shooting Russians. It's hilarious.
It's great.
The scene when he presents his outfit to Jojo, they're like in his office, serious and all, and he gives him a doodle.
It looks like a child drew it.
Do you see the feathers for aerodynamics?
Aerodynamics.
And there's a loudspeaker to blast annoying music. So yeah, he's a bit out of it for sure.
Yeah. I also feel like even though he might have not agreed with everything in terms of the Nazi philosophy, he was a military man. He liked that, because his introduction is like, you might be wondering why I'm here teaching a bunch of children and not riding into glorious battle, which I do too. Just Sam Rockwell is so good. And then he just starts shooting to prove that he doesn't need two eyes to be accurate, I guess. I don't know.
And the kids just start applauding. I definitely think, reading into it, that Jojo and Captain K have some sort of pact. Definitely might have been something to do with the father. That would be very plausible. Maybe you can read into it more on another watch. But I would like to believe that they have some sort of pact or agreement for him to like protect Jojo from it all. And that's why he goes around collecting scrap metal. By the way,
as a fucking robot,
we haven't even touched on the best character in the film.
Yorkie. Fuck yeah, Yorkie. Yorkie's awesome. Another great kid actor in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think he has great comedic timing.
And he's playing comedic relief, but you need him for that comedic relief. Every time you see him, he's like this little chubby kid who's just so cute.
And I feel he's such a great contrast to...
I'm sorry to hear that your mother died. I cried for hours. Oh.
He's just a great contrast to Jojo's fanatism, because you can see that like Yorkie's also into being in the Nazi Corps, I guess, but not to the same extent. And he's just, I feel he has so many great lines. I love when he says, "No, I'm just a kid trapped in the skin of a fat kid." I thought that made me laugh so much. And I feel like what's interesting about this movie is that we've watched it at least twice now, and I still laughed a lot. And that doesn't really happen with a lot of comedies for me. It's like once you know the joke is coming, it kind of loses it. But the writing is just so witty and so very perfectly delivered that you just can't help but laugh.
I'm looking forward to see this movie so many more times. Like, I think that signifies a good movie. I can quote all of Monty Python, The Holy Grail, but I laugh out loud every single time. When you're with Jojo and Elsa and they're like making food or something, and you hear the knock on the door and like, oh, it's the Gestapo scene. It's amazing.
Yeah, you just look forward to it.
That's the sign of a good comedy, realistically. Like,
I think rewatchability is key,
and like that it's timeless like that. Yeah.
I think another movie that does that really good is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Like, I've seen that movie so many times, and you've seen it so many more times than I have. But I still laugh a lot when I see that movie, just because it's well made, I guess. I don't know. I want to talk a little bit about the visual language that the movie has, because I feel cinematography might not be the first thing that people talk about when they see this movie. But I think it's really cool when it comes to cinematography and production design that Taika Waititi decided not to go the usual route when portraying, Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
It's easy to think that things were gray and bleak and kind of have a bluish tone, but that's realistically not how it was. Architecture is always very colorful in German towns. I find European towns overall have a very poppy, kind of quirky aspect to them. And I think it was a interesting choice to do that, because if you think about it, everything is very bright up until the moment that Jojo finds his mom, and then things get very desaturated. And then
the world around him too, like he's starting to doubt and hear things about the Hitler and the regime itself, and the war is creeping in on them. I feel like it reflects it perfectly.
Yeah, and I feel what's really good is just the use of visual aids, let's call them, to transmit the story progression. Jojo's always in Nazi outfits up until when he starts falling in love with Elsa, and then he stops wearing his uniform and his cap, and then he finds his mom, and then it goes out of the window completely. Like, he doesn't wear his uniform again,
just like Hitler did at the last scene with him.
Exactly, because he's supposed to be dead, right? And it's like, oh man, I don't think I can talk enough about how beautifully crafted this movie is from start to finish, and the amount of attention that it was put to the details, you know?
Like literally every single aspect, especially the cinematography, especially the art design. They had a tiny budget for this. Granted, very few locations. So they made that one building count. But the art design within that building and everywhere else, amazing. And the writing, we haven't really spoken about that, but it's so well written. Everything from the dialogue to the development, to the characters, to the sequences, wow. It's so well written and directed with kids. That's not an easy task. The acting on top of that, it's so good. So good.
I agree.
I have a big appreciation for like a small detail that makes it for me, not necessarily all of it, but like I love that. I mean, let's talk about the fact that most of them try, or maybe they don't even try to have a German accent. What's up with that?
Okay. Yes. So they do try, right? Because it's a thing.
They do, but do they? Or are they just trying just enough? Or
I don't know. And I noticed it more the second time. Because, for example, Scarlett Johannson definitely has an accent, but it's not
German.
There. Yeah. It's not German. I think it's supposed to vaguely inspire Europeanness. I guess.
That's a good way to put it, I think.
Yeah, like I feel it's just enough so that we understand that in the real world within the movie, they wouldn't be talking English to each other. And like the whole movie would be in German.
Rebel Wilson's accent is hilarious.
Yes. And I think maybe what he wanted to do was just like let them try it out and just have it enough for us to understand that they're foreigners. Especially because they're not all American either. So they have their own accents. So by having them have an accent, maybe it was a way to like normalize the English.
It also kind of makes it all quirkier because they go in and out of the accent at times, and it's not perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect. In that case, they would have like seemingly tried, I guess. But I think it adds to the quirkiness, the ridiculousness. It kind of lifts it all up from a serious war film that it could be, of course.
And that it is a little bit at the end.
Oh, those action scenes are cool. Especially the sequence when the German shepherds are running with guns and the rebel straps grenades to kids.
Which, and that's a thing, right? Like, it gets really dark.
Don't care.
Like, it gets really, really dark. And it, like, the thing with the grenade stuck to the kid and how she's just like, now go hug an American. And it's just like, that's a kamikaze kid. Anyway, I feel when it comes to the movie itself, a lot of people talked about how it made not fun, but that it was, glossing over or like sugarcoating a lot of the atrocities that happened during World War II. And I don't think that's exactly what he was trying to do, because he doesn't necessarily.
But I can see where you're coming from. Like, I can see how how you feel very strongly about this entire subject, and that it might be seemingly offending. But I think that he takes the precautions necessary, for even more precautions than necessary. Even, I would say it's very sensitive within the sensitive subject matter.
Yeah. And like you said, like, I understand where it's coming from. And, full disclosure, neither of us is Jewish, and neither of us, well, actually, I've never asked you this, but I don't have like a an actual
connection to it now.
connection to the 2nd World War, you know, and like, I'm Mexican. That's like that would have been a pretty hard sell. But you're European, and there's a higher chance, I guess, for you to have a connection to the 2nd World War.
Yeah, no, other than asking my grandparents of how they experienced it. No, which is like nothing special. It's just, well, it's just a war. Of course, they were terrified for their lives, but not that big of a deal in Sweden, that is.
Yeah. And so that could definitely add to the fact that we don't find, you know, we don't have that same mindset, I guess. And I feel what I would think is key is to understand that he's not trying to make light of it. He's trying to highlight what was ridiculous about it, you know. But when he has to get dark, it gets dark, and the war scene, because it's more like 1 or 2 scenes itself, it's heavy. It's a big switch between what we've been looking at that moment. And
they are allowed to play within that and take its time. Then, of course, with the next scene or sequence, switching back to jokes and funniness with Yorkie most of the time, to be honest. But with the death scene as well, it takes its time. You feel for the kid, even though it instantly switches back to a jokey, ridiculous quirkiness.
Well, I think the key there is that it lets you sit in it and breathe in it. You know, like after we find out that Rosie's dead, there's a moment of Jojo sitting down and just,
even before that, there's like this transition. If you just go back and forth constantly, it wouldn't work out the same.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing with the war. Like you see Jojo faced with the horribleness of it, and he's really, really shocked because it's not this thing that he thought. It's not like heroic. It's not glorious. It's not this, you know, epic charge for your country. It's loud and it's violent and it's bloody and it's awful. And you're with him in that journey. And then when he hides in that house, that's when you sit on it and you're like, oh shit, like war has now caught up with the reality that this kid was living in and that we were in with him. So
yeah, it's shocking to us, I think, the audience. It is.
Yeah, it comes out of nowhere.
Going back to the German accent and so, like,
yeah,
of course, it kind of makes it more real. It does, that they have some sort of accent. It makes it more like as if it is taking place in Berlin, Germany, even though it's shot almost completely in Prague. On top of that, I really appreciate, it's a small detail, but I love the fact that everything is written in German. Everything from the propaganda posters to the there's quite a few letters that Jojo writes, all in German. And
his book is also in German.
Small touches, like it doesn't make the movie or anything, but I just love that they pay such close attention. I guess it proves that they do pay close attention to small things like that.
Like I feel like
it just makes it more down to earth. It makes it more realistic within the out of this world. Yeah, I feel when it comes to, you know, filmmakers, attention to detail is not always there, but when it is, it adds so much to it, you know, and you can sense the amount of thought that goes behind all of the decisions that Taika Waititi did for this movie. And I feel they add to the fact that it's a breathing environment, you know, and like realistically, of course they would write in German. Hello, it's Germany. It's a fact. But I can understand how that can become a second thought or something in the back of your head, so you don't really pay attention to it. Yeah, I have spoken to quite a few people about Jojo Rabbit, and I've only heard good things. I've yet to find someone that is not too big of a fan of the film, I think it sits well with most people. I mean, it's a lighthearted film. It's a coming of age story. That's usually goes home with most people, but it's really well done. I don't see how you can go wrong with it.
I agree. And with that, what's your rating, Algot?
Naturally,
even though everyone knows what it is, but what is it?
You know this more than anyone that this is my type of film. It truly is. It's quirky. It's hilarious. It's very, not necessarily escapistic, but it's very like out of this world. I feel like I've used that term many times, but it describes the setting of the film very well. It's a very certain 5 out of 5 to me. It's an amazing film. 5 out of 5.
Yeah. First time I watched this movie, I gave it a 4-star.
Oh.
Mostly because I thought like it didn't necessarily hit the right notes emotionally for me. Like I laughed a lot, but I thought that the emotional scenes didn't connect quite as much with me, which I'm not sure why. I'm not gonna lie, I have no explanation for it. Upon rewatch, it hit me more, I guess, and the true balance within the movie and the acting and everything that comes together to make this movie what it is. And yeah, I'm upping up my grade for this, and I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 as well, because I think
1 entire star more.
I think it is perfect.
It is perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about it. Everything is done very well. Everyone gives their best performance.
I feel like when
I don't know what's wrong with it. Like I can't find anything that I didn't like.
When I watch movies, I especially with this kind of film, I have a tendency to like completely delve into the world, the character, and just time just flies by. And but I think that's just another sign of well-crafted movies and like great filmmaking. This one especially, like, you know, I relate to a Nazi kid. That's not something that I should relate to, but they're just so well done.
Yeah, everything is very well thought out, and you know, I enjoy watching a movie like everyone else, but I also like analyzing and dissecting and really getting into it. And this movie has a lot to do with, like, for me to do that, you know. There's motifs with the shoes, with the butterflies, what they mean, what they don't mean, and everything is...
And real quick, like with the red shoes, that's so Spielberg. There's even a quote, I think, from a Tarantino film. I forget what it is, but there is a lot of like hints on other films and a lot of homages even. Yeah,
because, you know, like, yes, it's Spielberg to have red shoes, but it's also very Wizard of Oz. And I think that's very interesting too, you know, to compare Rosie to Dorothy, about someone who just maybe is a little bit quirkier and magical than your normal person. And I guess that's how a kid looks at his mom, you know, as this beacon of light. And
again, I look forward to seeing this movie multiple times in the future.
Yeah, no, and just Taika is so good, man. I haven't seen a movie of his that I haven't liked, really. In case you guys are looking for more of him, What We Do in the Shadows is a great mockumentary about vampires and what they do, and it's hilarious.
Hunt for the Wilder People is very similar to Jojo and one of my absolute favorites of his.
Yeah, and you know, most recently, I guess, more mainstream, he did Thor Ragnarok, which is a great movie too. Very Taika, which is surprising because, you know, Marvel and Disney and their control. But yeah, I think it's great. And with all of that said, this cup of coffee's over. It's over. And this conversation is over too. So how about you outro us, Algot?
Goodbye, everyone. It's been nice. That's all. Goodbye. Don't forget to follow us on Letterboxd. But yeah, it's been nice.
Is that your loneliness coming out?
I am very lonely. I need an Elsa in my life, or a Jojo for that matter. A little Nazi boy to follow me around. Don't take that out of context.
Oh my God.
No, it's been nice.
Sound bites.
It's been nice.
Yeah.
I love good movies. This is.
I know you do.
We should watch more good movies.
Yeah. Dude, I've been watching so many shit movies. Like, I don't know why, but like this week I watched so many bad movies. Well, not bad, but at least like barely mediocre. So this was a nice breath of fresh air, I guess.
Then again, you kind of
like
need to see the films in order to establish that they are bad. You need some of it.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I don't know. The thing is, like, one of my guilty pleasures are romantic comedies. Like, they just do it for me. But some, like, most don't do it for me because most of them are not good. So I've seen a couple this week that I was like, oh my God, can I just die? Please just let me die. Anyways, follow us on Letterboxd. The links to our profiles are on the doobly-doo.
Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify and whatnot, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all the good stuffs.
Yes. We're in every single platform that you can think of. Subscribe, like it, share it. You know, sharing is nice. Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring. And we'll be back next week, maybe in 2 weeks. You don't know. We don't know. We do know. We'll be back next week. I'm excited.
With another good episode. Goodbye, Mo.
Bye, Algot.